Hello beautiful people, welcome to or back to my channel, Self Love Lexi. If you've never been here before, I'm Alexis. I'm a self-love coach and I teach women how to love themselves unconditionally. If you haven't yet, follow my Instagram. Through my Instagram, I post every single day about a variety of topics. Through the link of my Instagram, you can access my free community of lovely ladies. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. There are so many helpful resources and links there. Through my community, I talk about inner work, action steps for self-development, and so many things. I watch a lot of videos on YouTube about self-development, and if I feel super strongly about one, I will send it over. On top of that, through my link in my bio, I have so many freebies, free resources that you guys can access, including amazing journal prompts that I've used myself. You can see information on my coaching. I offer one-on-one coaching through 1 hour to 6 months. So definitely go follow me there. I'm so excited for the topic of today. It is going to be nervous system and how to rewire it, my story, and so much more. So let me quickly go over what the actual nervous system is. Every one of us has a nervous system. It is in our bodies, and we can start with the central nervous system. This is basically your brain and your spinal cord. The central nervous system processes information. It makes big decisions. Not even big, it just makes decisions. And it sends signals to your body. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, which is like all the branches inside of your body. It's pretty much the nerves, and these nerves, these branches carry messages to the brain. And these branches carry messages back and forth. The peripheral splits into two. We have the somatic nervous system, which basically controls voluntary movements like boom. That was my somatic nervous system. Boom, somatic nervous system. If you're walking, that's also your somatic nervous system. It also sends information to and from the body to the brain. So for example, like touching something or even hot temperatures as well, temperature in general. And then we have the autonomic nervous system, which is basically your automatic movements, your automatic body functions such as breathing, digestion, that kind of thing. And the autonomic nervous system splits into two, essentially, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, to break it up very, very shortly, is the fight, flight, and freeze. This parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. Obviously, it's not just one or the other. Sometimes you can be in the middle, for example, like dorsal, ventral, that's like a whole different thing. So for your sympathetic nervous system, this is usually activated in moments where you feel stressed. Now, historically, this was activated, for example, if we were running away from a bear. Our focus became so very clear. You are tunnel vision on survival. This is why the fight, flight, and freeze come into play. Because I love to use the example of the bear chasing after you. If a bear is coming after you, you are automatically put into the stress response, into the sympathetic nervous system, into survival mode. And you're either going to fight, flight, or freeze. That's pretty much all your body is naturally going to do. It is a natural response from stress. But this is a while ago. This is when we had to run for our lives all the time. This is when we had to hunt, all these things. Whereas now, the stressors are different. The stressors happen every single day with social media, watching the news. In fact, the stressors are pushed onto us. Even sending a risky text can put you into a state of sympathetic nervous system. Think about it. If you send that text, all of a sudden you freeze up. Your heart rate starts beating fast and your breath turns shallow. Like literally the sympathetic nervous system. Now, I want to be clear. There is such thing as good stress and there is such thing as bad stress. For example, good stress on the body would look like going to the gym and lifting heavy. Bad stress on the body is like getting into a car crash. A lot of people actually can grow from good stress on the body. Your prefrontal cortex grows when you do something that's good for you that you don't want to do. For example, like having discipline. Also, look at my cute sets. They're pink. This is my mom's mug. It says spicy. I have bone broth in this mug. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. Whenever you're in a state of calm or ease, this is usually what's happening. And so if we go back to the analogy of the bear, when you're in the sympathetic nervous system, running from your life in that state of stress, your body is not focused on digesting. It's not focused on looking around you. It's not focused on how can I elevate. It is literally solely focused on survival. So when you think about the state of the world right now, a lot of people are drawn into fear. And it's actually very normal to be drawn into fear. We survive through this instinctual understanding that fear and stress is important to acknowledge. So of course, when fear comes our way, we want to acknowledge it. We want to entertain that, because before, if the bear came and we just ignored it, then we would die. So we literally understand the importance of fear. The only thing is, it's pushed onto us in so many ways that a lot of us are in a constant state of this sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so being in an elevated state of stress long term can have poor effects on concentration, memory issues, increased anxiety, emotional reactivity, and difficulty with self-control and planning. It also causes increased inflammation in blood vessels, higher risk of heart disease and stroke, greater strain on the heart, increased susceptibility to illness, slower wound healing, more inflammation, higher risk of autoimmune flare-ups, irritable bowel movements, acid reflux, appetite changes, blood sugar. You get the point. There is a huge problem with people who have long-term stressors and are in a elongated state of the sympathetic nervous system, which honestly, look around you. So many people are in a state of survival mode. My sister and her boyfriend came in, so I took a second to talk to them. They're doing well. Let's get back into the video. So why most people are living in a state of fear, living in a state of stress, living in a state of sympathetic nervous system or survival mode. I touched on it briefly. They want us in a state of fear because when we're in a state of immense emotional distress, we are much more susceptible to be manipulated, to be controlled. There's so many ways that they do this now. If you watch the news, watch how you feel before and after watching the news. There's almost always something that stresses you out. If you go on social media, you can see that the level of comparison is crazy. We naturally compare as humans. It's a natural thing. But so many people are put into a state of stress, put into a state of survival, and so they're functioning on survival. And then they see people who have a lot. They are living full, lavish lives, and it just kind of brings a cycle of self-doubt, self-pity, all of these things, which is horrible. When you're in the identity of I'm not enough, I'm not loved, you are surviving from that state. On top of this, when you're in a state of survival mode, usually you're in a state of fear, stress, anxiety, and this state perpetuates into your frequency or your electromagnetic field. The state that you're in will impact your thoughts, and your thoughts impact your emotions and thoughts impact your beliefs impact your actions, and your actions impact your reality. So just as an example, imagine you're in a state of stress, survival, because you are barely making enough money to survive. Now you're in a state of fear and anxiety, okay? And so your thoughts are constantly ruminating, oh my god, oh my goodness, I can't survive, life sucks, da 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 da. This creates the emotion of fear, of anxiety, and that two together, thoughts and emotions, create a belief of even things like God is against me, I'm so unlucky, okay? And from this state of core identity and belief, you're gonna take action or inaction that confirms the beliefs. It's kind of this perpetuating cycle. So when you're in a state of a sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, this survival mode, your brain is wired to scan for threats all the time. It is impossible to be in two seats at once. You can't be in the state of sympathetic nervous system and you cannot be at the same time in the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're stressed, you can't be relaxed. It's just impossible. And because the majority of people are in a state of survival mode now, they're constantly worried about exactly that. Survival. If you've seen the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're at the bottom state of the pyramid. They might have food, they might have water, they might have shelter, they might even have community, but because of how much fear shoved into our faces, so many people still exist on this survival mode. And because of the state that they're functioning on, they have the inability to excel. They're not finding their purpose. They're not worried about what they think about themselves or how they perceive the world or self-love or anything like this. They're just functioning from a state of fear. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about my story with my nervous system, specifically with my sympathetic nervous system, and how I started to regulate. So when I was younger, I was brought up by a single mother who worked her ass off. She was the head of HR. I barely got to see her. I had nannies coming in and out, and she was always functioning from a state of survival mode. And I don't blame anything on her. She had the lack of knowledge of anything to do with the nervous system, healing, anything like that. But because of what I saw growing up, my hyper independent mother working her ass off to survive, I grew up believing that I needed to overproduce, overhustle, overachieve to be worthy. And I was constantly in a state of survival mode all the time. I never sat down and would give myself relaxation. I thought rest was stupid. And so I was always functioning from a state of survival, very linear thinking, tunnel vision, which helps during some periods of your life. But in the majority, I was becoming super depressed, suicidal, anxious. I developed a lot of bad eating habits, poor self-image, so many things. And eventually on my healing journey, way far down, like really down the rabbit hole, I eventually started to see how important rest was. And I didn't know how to rest. I mean, I've been meditating for a long time, but every time I meditated, it was to be more productive with focus. That was the goal of meditation, or to access like higher spiritual realms, all these things, right? Anytime my body would force me into rest, like I would get extremely sick, for example, I would still push through. I remember one time I had a bad illness. I was out of school for like a month or so, and I would still try, and I would still show up at the gym, even in so much pain. And I pushed through that. And this was recent. This was very recent, actually, probably about less than a year ago. And so what I'm talking about, less than a year ago. But I had a very pivotal moment when I was on my period, and I decided very briefly before that I wasn't gonna go to the gym anymore when I was on my period. I started studying cortisol, the body of a woman, all of these things, hormones, etc. And I realized how impactful it is for us women to actually get rest. And so I noted it. I was like, okay, you know what? I am such a hustler. I'm just gonna give myself this love and allow myself to rest. And I remember I got my period. I was on the floor and I started rubbing my stomach. And I just bursted into tears. Because for a moment, I was sitting on my mat, not focusing on how to achieve more, how to produce more, what to do. I was just focused on my body. And I was immediately put into the parasympathetic nervous system, where I was resting and really in tune with who I was. And in that moment, I realized how far I've came from a person who could not rest because I didn't see it as productive, and the only way I was worthy was productivity and achieving, to somebody who allowed my body to rest and it was in tune with what I needed. And I just felt such an immense amount of love, overwhelming amount of love, that I just started bawling my eyes out. And if you are somebody who does overproduce, hyperproductive, all of these things, if you allow yourself a moment to rest, emotions probably will come up, because emotions get trapped into our body, especially during the sympathetic nervous system. If you're in a survival state, you are not going to have time or feel like you have time to process anything. So it just goes directly, stores in your body, creates illness, all these things. There are certain practices I do every day to kind of regulate my nervous system. One of them is the body scan. So from head to toe, I see how my body is. Is my jaw clenched or relaxed? Are my feet planted on the ground? Is my body shaking? Is my breathing really fast and rapid, or is it slow and controlled? Are my palms clenched? All of these things are super helpful. There's actually a funny thing where you can use breathing to activate the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So activating the sympathetic nervous system would look like we're activating this parasympathetic nervous system. Activating the parasympathetic nervous system would look like and really being present. That is one thing I do every day, is the body scan. I also meditate for 5 minutes every day, really focused on my breath, on my breathing, how I'm doing. Another thing that just seems to happen for me all the time is being so in the present moment that I'm just in awe of my surroundings. And this is impossible to do when you're in a state of fight or flight. I'll go outside and I'll just be in awe of the sun, the sunset, the way the trees are swaying, how the snow is glistening. And when I take a second and really scan my environment and super present with myself and my surroundings, that just automatically puts me in a state of calmness, puts me in a state of peace. I hope you love this video as much as I loved making it. Comment below every exercise that you use to regulate yourself and regulate your nervous system. I would love to hear it, so would everybody else. Just a reminder to join my free community of lovely ladies. We would love to have you, and you will love to be there. Love yourself as much as I love you. Mwah.